Hi, I'm Nick,
And I'm Miki.
and this is Puzzles, a How I Met Your Mother Re-Rewatch.
Each week, we'll be breaking down episodes of How I Met Your Mother, mostly spoiler-free, celebrating the show,
Critiquing it,
asking what aged well.
and what aged poorly.
Why is it called Puzzles, Nick?
That's the puzzle.
This is episode 10. Ted, you poor dumb bastard. Hello. Hopefully we don't have any crazy computer issues on my end this week.
Hopefully not.
Have you been reading more Hunger Games?
I have, yeah. Actually, today I finished the first book last night, and I started the second book this morning. I'm already like more than halfway through.
Ooh, okay.
It's the first time in a while that I've just like sat down to read a book all day. It's kind of nice.
Oh, I'm so envious of that.
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, it's mostly similar to the movies. There's some nice extra detail. The ending of the first one is actually different than I expected from the movie.
I don't remember how it ended differently.
Well, like the way the game ended. So in the movie, there are these mutations, the dogs, the wolf dog thing, monsters.
And they somehow the dead contestants.
Well, in the book they are, yeah, but they don't really show that in the. Maybe they did, but I didn't notice it in the movie. I may have to go back and check. But yeah, in the book, yeah, it's like they took the dead bodies of the tributes and then turned them into monsters. The ending was a lot more brutal and the things that happened, like the way Kato died. So like at the very end, Kato's the last one standing other than Peeta and Katniss, and maybe I shouldn't spoil it for anyone.
I mean, if they haven't read it or seen it by this point, skip ahead, guys.
They took him into the cornucopia, the dogs, and they were basically keeping him alive and like slowly feeding on him all night. And he only finally died in the morning when Katniss shot him with an arrow. Whereas in the movie, it was just a very quick. He was sat on by the wolf mutts, and she shot him right then. So they took out some of the violence that was actually in the book.
Yeah, I don't remember that part.
Yeah, so I'm enjoying these books. So I saw Superman yesterday.
That looked terrible. How was it?
Well, they're actually half of the movie I liked, actually liked. Half the movie was kind of meh. The bright spots was definitely where Rachel Brosnahan was on screen.
Oh, is she in that?
She's Lois.
I like her.
Yeah, she's really good. I could take or leave most of the superhero stuff.
Mhm.
It was definitely more on the corny side than anything. And they had I mean, there are parts that were funny though too. I kind of did enjoy my time in the theater, but it's not something I really need to see again.
Mhm.
But I will say, I'm kind of interested to see what they do with the universe going forward. Like, I would like to see Rachel Brosnahan's Lois again. They have Supergirl, who is young Targaryen in House of the Dragon. I think.
Oh, the crazy sister,
Oh, I forget.
where she had the two kids and something bad might have happened to one of them.
Well, the first episodes of House of the Dragon season 1, where they're the Targaryen girl and her friend.
Oh, you're talking about the younger version of the two main characters.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know exactly who you mean. Mhm.
So there's some interesting things I'd be willing to see, but otherwise, I've never been super into Superman DC stuff.
Mhm.
We'll see.
Same.
Also, Foundation started the past couple weeks, and that seems like it's starting off pretty good. I tried a show called Mrs. Davis. That's on Peacock. Damon Lindelof was involved in that, of Leftovers and Lost fame. It may be a little bit more weird than interesting, but I'm still trying to decide. The thesis is that there's an AI that has basically become the overlord of all people, and there's a nun who's resisting joining this, and yeah, it goes from there. And it gives her a task to find the Holy Grail. So I don't know. It's odd.
Is it branded like a comedy or I could see it being either.
It's like an absurdist, very very absurdist. But we'll see. And I also finished Bunheads.
Oh, really? Forgot you were watching that.
It's not a good show, but It's surprisingly, like, I enjoyed some of the character interactions. It was like a light, low stakes, fun network show. Or I guess it was cable, but it was like nothing super serious was going on. There's just some fairly good actors doing fun things on the screen, kind of absurd storylines. It was a good light thing up between like all these heavy duty shows I like usually watch. Every streaming show has to have like some big grand plot afoot. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, the plot this week is they have to get a dance recital going for something, and there's a interpersonal yeah, it's like very low stakes stuff. So it was actually kind of nice, and it had a good heart. But it was canceled out of the blue, so there's not actually a good finale. Anyway, it was a shame that it's kind of a shame it didn't have a second season, just because it would be kind of fun. But
Yeah, I can see why that would be, a healthy addition to mix into some of the other shows it sounds like you've been watching. Yeah,
yeah,
so listeners, probably my favorite show of all time is Gilmore Girls. I'm a big Amy Sherman Palladino fan. I did not like Bunheads. I watched it for the first time maybe 6 plus months ago, maybe a little more. I was pretty disappointed.
did you watch the whole thing?
I did watch the whole thing. Yeah, well, it wasn't like over the course of a weekend, but I did
Hmm.
binge it. Yeah, I think if you talked to me 6 months ago, I would remember more of my complaints, but,
I would say like the kind of the middle stretch was the strongest part, where like this is like the four girls and the lead actress, and then the actress who
yeah,
plays
Sutton
more.
Foster.
But those interactions are all really liked.
I forget, with, that podcast you and I like, Buffy the Gilmore Slayer, did you listen to that season where they recap Bunheads?
I had listened to it before because they were doing Firefly along with it, but I went back to listen to it again now that I had some idea of what they were actually talking
Okay.
about.
So you
It's
kinda
like,
knew what
oh,
was gonna happen. Yeah, I think, like, the first episode where the way it ends, where they kill off the guy,
that was very absurd.
I actually laughed because I, like, just wasn't expecting it. It wasn't, like, funny to me, it was just really shocking, and I was like, "Oh god, they killed off Connor from Succession." Connor, right? From Succession, that was that I just saw him as Connor that whole episode. And yeah, like, I was kind of hoping Etoile would be like Bunheads, but better, and it's a very different show, and it's so long, like, I just haven't really gotten hooked yet. I haven't even finished the first episode. I'm, like, watching it in 20-minute increments.
I haven't seen it at all. Do you like it?
It's well done. It's the same type of production value, I'd say, as Mrs. Maisel. If you liked the dancing in Bunheads, that's cool, and so, like, Amy Sherman Palladino, her, signature, right, is the rapid, very tightly knit, dialogue, the references, and that quick pace, and you get a lot of that, but, it's kinda nice when it breaks it up with like, there'll be minutes at a time where it's pure silence, just with the music and the dancing, and you get a little reprieve from, getting inundated with all the dialogue, so that's actually kind of the cool balance in both of those shows, actually.
Hmm, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
What have you been watching?
Yeah, well, so, actually, I was thinking about this when you mentioned Hunger Games, but, we finished Squid Game.
Ah, okay. How was it? Worth it?
It was solid, I think it was worth it. D I have not even necessarily criticisms, just some of my feedback, hopefully this wouldn't spoil anything for anybody, but, you know how, like, the way Lost was structured, where, like, every episode you get a little flashback into, yeah, what
Sure.
led, a character, even a baddie, to the island. I think that would've actually worked really well for Squid Game. I think it would've been a much more interesting show if we got a little more backstory and they structured that in a way where as you're going along, you got a little bit of, "Okay, how did this person end up in the game?"
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
I'll say there was the 2nd and 3rd season or, season 2, part 1 and 2, however they framed it. It's a lot of kids stuff, but I was able to get through it, and I don't know, it had a solid ending that made sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, my husband and I were kinda debating about, like, why did this show catch on the way it did in the US, and one of our theories was because Hunger Games actually laid out some of the groundwork for that, like, 10 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, so it's definitely a heavy show, but I think it's worth finishing.
Okay, I'll get around to it eventually when Netflix gets back in the cycle.
Yeah, and then another heavy show, my friend and I, we watched a couple episodes of Handmaid's Tale. We only get to hang out every couple months, so we're making our way very slowly through it. We're in the last season. I do not like the last season one bit,
Mm.
but we've stuck with it for so many years. We're just like, we gotta finish it.
What's the aspect that you like the least?
Nothing's happened. It's
Okay.
really boring, and there's a lot of threads to pick up
Mm.
and wrap up, and they're just I'm like, "You guys only have so many more episodes left. Do you wanna deal with Hannah, maybe? Do you wanna do anything?"
Yeah, common streaming show challenge.
Do you think that's a streaming thing?
Yeah, it seems like I mean, I don't know if it's, like, because of the way they shoot these or write these, but it seems like there's a lot of throat clearing, and then, like, in the last couple episodes or even last episode, they rush to get everything done. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah. I worry that they're gonna cram too much into the last couple of episodes, and it's gonna feel uneven. I mean,
Mm.
a couple of the actors in the show I really like, and the cinematography I think is like Breaking Bad level, and the soundtrack's fantastic. So there's a lot of merit to the show, even up until this point. But I'd say, yeah, the last couple seasons in the series,
Mhm.
it needs to. We need to move on.
Yeah, I think I'm glad I only watched the first season. I don't really need to see the rest.
I mean, honestly, the next few seasons are really, really well done. But at a certain
Yeah, but
point,
if I know it's not if I know it's not gonna wrap up cleanly, it's like, "Eh, why bother? It's too depressing," and I
yeah.
am a completionist, so I will feel compelled to finish if I keep going.
Yes. Yeah, same. Like, that's how I feel about, 6 Feet Under because my
Mm,
husband I'm saying, like, my husband and my daughter for the listener's benefit, obviously, you know their names, but my husband and I, like, we just kinda bailed on 6 Feet Under, and then we tried to get back into it the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm out," and because I'm a completionist, even though it's not a good season right now, I've heard that the last season and the finale in particular are great,
mm.
and I feel like I wanna earn that finale by slogging through the rest of this. It's not a good season, but I might just plow ahead on my own.
Alright, well, if you vouch for the end when you get there eventually, then maybe I'll go ahead
'Cause
and finish.
I think you stopped watching around the time that, Utkarsh has bailed, so
Yeah.
yeah, so that's it TV-wise, and then, again, actually speaking of movies, we took our daughter to see her first movie, in a movie theater yesterday.
Oh, wow, what movie?
My Neighbor Totoro.
I have not seen that.
It's really sweet. I don't like anime, but this is one of the ones I actually really like. If you can count what is it, Studio Ghibli, if you can count that as anime, then
Can you not count it as anime?
I've heard that it's considered maybe a little different from I mean, I guess anime is a really broad genre, right? But for me, it's anime, but, it's very sweet, and she did great, she loved it. Well, she had seen the movie before, so we knew she would
Oh.
like the movie, but yeah, she wasn't scared, didn't talk through it, more than I can say for me.
Well, that's great.
I was really proud.
So, shall we get into the episodes? A big one today.
This is gonna be a top-heavy episode. I think we're gonna spend a
Mhm.
lot more of this episode talking about yours, 'cause yours had
Yeah.
a lot more going on than mine. Well, I'm prepared to go in with as much serenity as I could muster. I've got my tea ready. I'm really gonna try to contain myself.
Alright, well, let's get
Take it
going.
away, Nick.
So, we actually didn't talk about what we're actually gonna talk about today. We're gonna cover, season 1, episode 18, Nothing Good Happens After 2 AM, and season 1, episode 19, Mary the Paralegal. So I'm up first. This, episode aired on April 10th, 2006, so people had to wait 3 weeks after last week's cliffhanger to find out what happened if they're watching
Ooh,
live. So you imagine that, sitting with that for 3 weeks if you're a fan of the show. Definitely not something we have to do these days when we're watching TV.
typically.
But it definitely ramped the stakes up, I think. So the guest stars for this episode, we have Sandy Rivers, Alexis Denisoff, Allison Hannigan's real life husband. Of course, we know him as and love him as Wesley Wyndham Price, the Watcher in Buffy and Angel. He also starred in a Much Ado About Nothing movie with Amy Acker, who we also love from
Mhm.
Angel and other shows like Dollhouse.
Fred, right? Fred? Is that Amy Acker?
Yep. Fred from the Angel. And I keep meaning to see that movie because I played Benedict in my high school's play,
Oh,
but never got around to it. Apparently, it's really good. And also, I guess it's kind of a modernization of it as well. And also, apparently, he was in 2 episodes of How I Met Your Father, which I'm increasingly curious what happened in that series. So maybe at some point I'll have to watch that.
do you know I was gonna ask if you looked this up because as I was watching this episode, I was curious. Do you know when Allison Hannigan and now I just wanna say, Leslie, but, when did they get together? Do you know?
I want to say it was well before this.
Was it during Buffy or Angel?
Looking this up.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, there might have been overlap between Angel and How I Met Your Mother.
They were married in 2003, actually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was that late Buffy.
That would've been, like, right at the end of Buffy. And he actually is British, right?
He was born in Maryland, so no.
'Cause one of my comments was it was so funny hearing him do an American accent, and then I was like, "Wow, I'd be embarrassed if he actually was American."
Oh, hey, he went to St. Paul's School in New Hampshire, one of the
Oh,
private schools in New Hampshire. I actually went there for a summer program,
okay.
when I was in high school.
Maryland, how
But
disappointing.
he did go to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, so
Okay, so he could obviously ape a good British accent. Did I ever tell you were you with me? I was at Dragon Con. No. I was in Boston. They had, like, a Buffy con, and, I love, James Marsters, who plays Spike and Buffy and Angel, and he opened his mouth and an American accent came out, and my brain exploded. I thought he was British the entire time.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I just was curious.
Anyway, we love Lex Stanislav. So also there's, Korean Elvis, who's, played by George Chung, and actually he is Chinese. So, they
Wondered.
keep yeah, they keep, just any Asian person will do for any other Asian, sort of the era of Hollywood this was in. He's actually been in a bunch of things as minor characters, including Arrested Development, Alias, and The West Wing.
Oh, who was he in Arrested Development?
Asian man.
Sorry.
I don't know what particular role. It was one episode.
Wait, was that actually his character's name?
It was the character title, yeah.
Oh my god, that's funny. Well, at least they didn't, like, put Korean man.
Yes, at least they did that. All right, so my description for this episode is Ted screws two women and loses both. Meanwhile, Lily makes an Elvis impersonator moan.
Wonderful.
Thank you. So let's dive in. So actually, we get I think the first previously on recap of the series out without using the narrator, and I wonder if they just did this because it'd been so long since the previous episode that the network wanted to have a regular reminder for people.
Mhm.
Because of course this is like kind of before DVRs were so huge, and people sometimes record things, sometimes didn't on VCRs. Anyway, so we get a recap of the Ted, Victoria, and Robin drama from the last few episodes. And then future Ted says, "Kids, your grandma always used to say to me that nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m. She was right. When 2 a.m. rolls around, just go home and go to sleep. Case in point." And we have shots of NYC at night over this. We are at the apartment, and Ted gets the call that we've already seen for last episode that he presumably thinks is going to be Victoria, but it's Robin. And then we go to Robin's apartment. The future Ted says, "Let's back up a bit." We see Robin wake up in bed in the morning with all five of her dogs, looking very happy. She getting ready for the day, and then leaves, telling her dogs to stay out of the liquor cabinet. Haha. Turns out she was going to Lily's classroom to talk about her job, and Barney is there too. And so I never actually noticed this before, but on the chalkboard they list three professions, and then it just says Barney, not the purple one. And a little girl asks Robin if she has a fiance, and Lily explains that Marshall had visited there recently and they had just learned the word. Robin says no, and the girl asks who she lives with. Robin says she has five dogs. The girl asks if she gets lonely, and then Robin repeats herself. The girl's response was, "My grandma has five cats and she gets lonely." And then Robin starts getting really annoyed here and puts down cat ladies and tries to cover for insulting her grandma. Then a little boy asks if Robin's a lesbian. And this is, borderline homophobic. She responds, "No, are you?" I thought that was really funny. And then she kind of spirals a bit before Lily intervenes and moves on to Barney. Barney makes fun of Robin for this and asks the kid for a tiny five, which he gets. Lily tries to introduce Barney's job, but he kind of waves off with this, "Haha, please." And instead, he does magic for them, which they love. And Robin was so excited for Barney to get put down by this tough crowd, and they just love him.
It's always fun to see NPH doing magic because he actually is a certified magician in real life.
This is true. So we cut to the news station that night. Later, so Ted is calling Robin about Victoria, and Robin advises him to go out and do something to get his mind off for not calling, which is great advice. Ted jokes that if he goes out, Robin will lose half her viewership, and she thinks it's cute that he thinks they have two viewers. And then we pan over to see Sandy Rivers at the anchor desk. Then we cut through their own commercial break, and producer counts down to being off air. And then Sandy asks Robin if she has a boyfriend because of the phone call. Robin says no, and she sort of tries to explain the situation with Ted, kind of over explaining. And then Sandy just says, "We should have sex." His logic is, we're both attractive, we're both available, we're both good at it, at least I'm good at it, and even if you're not, I'll have a good time either way. And Robin says the image of his hair helmet clanging against the headboard is horrifying, but she doesn't get involved with people she works with. And Sandy comes back with, "Who said involved? I'm just saying we should have sex." And as the producer starts counting down to airtime, he just like keeps going right to the end. We're saying having sex is fun, and hands her a business card before immediately launching into the news. I just love this character that he's playing here.
I enjoy him.
Then at Robin's apartment later that night, Robin arrives home and her dogs are all sleeping. Robin asks if they miss her, and they don't budge. So Robin's feeling down. Next, we see that she's in her PJs and she's pouring out a huge glass of wine, which seems to be the whole bottle. You think that's a real wine glass? Like, do they actually make them that big?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think I drink wine a little more than you. Yeah, totally. You just typically don't pour to the top of the wine glass like you would like a beer glass.
Are you supposed to just go to like where the widest point or something?
That's a great question. I always eyeball it, but I don't think it ever necessarily. No,
Okay.
it probably depends on the glass. Actually, I should know this. I don't. I used to bartend as well. Apparently, I wasn't doing a very good job.
Well, then we see Robin on the couch. She's snuggled with her dogs and she's just finished the wine in this huge glass in her dark apartment. And then she takes out the card for Sandy Rivers. Then she goes to call someone, but it turns out to be Ted. So, at this point, we should see like Robin's had a really crappy day. She's feeling lonely and vulnerable, and she's seems to be hoping that Ted has already broken up with Victoria this night. And I think we're going to tear a lot into Ted in this episode. I think it's safe to say. But I do also think we should probably acknowledge here that Robin should have confirmed Ted was broken up at this point, right? Like, she was calling him knowing that he might still be having a girlfriend. And so she probably should also have made some better choices.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen this episode, but this is the first time I've watched it where I paid attention to Robin's accountability as well as Ted's.
Mhm.
And yeah, let's say hypothetically they actually had broken up. I don't think it was a good move for her to then invite someone who's potentially emotionally vulnerable to come over immediately after this breakup. She's sounds like she's kind of hoping happened.
Yeah. So the commercial break, and when we come back, we see a split between Robin and Ted's apartments. Ted's asking, "What's up?" Robin maybe loses her nerve a little bit and doesn't like ask directly, or she's reaching for an excuse here. She says she got a new juicer. And she's as bad as Ted usually is at lying at this point, but Ted seems very oblivious here, or at least he's like in deep denial about what might be happening, about Robin's intentions, because obviously he doesn't know the secret that Robin has shared with Lily. And they hang up, and Ted goes to get a cab. And when we see the taxi, Ted is next to this huge grocery bag of like fruits and veggies. We see like the tops of maybe like carrots sticking out. And he starts venting to the cab driver about the situation. Ted eventually apologizes for venting and says cab drivers are new bartenders. And the cab driver says, "You ain't kidding, kid," and takes a swig of a flask and offers it to Ted. Ted, to his credit, immediately asks the taxi driver to pull over. Then he picks up right where he left off with the new cab driver, actually saying, "Here's where I left off with the last guy." Then he imagines that Victoria is his cab driver, whom he starts arguing with. And I kind of love this through line of the episode. Like, they found a way to get Victoria back in, and so we can kind of get this last interaction with them, even though she's off screen.
It worked great. Also because, it worked it's not truly Victoria, right? It's Ted's, a
Yes.
figment of his conscience.
Which, and Victoria asks why Ted is picturing Robin naked if he's just going over with his friends. And Ted says he's only doing that because she said that. But she points out that she's just Ted's subconscious trying to break through, and he's like, "Damn, foiled." Ted's reactions to his subconscious talking to him, and also to like Lily talks to him later and makes good points, is always very good. He's like, he has good expressionality with
Mhm.
all that. That's probably not a word, but that's okay. We're going to go through it.
It can be.
So Ted insists that nothing will happen and calls Marshall for a second opinion, who's apparently still out with Lily and Barney at the karaoke bar we left them with last episode. Ted explains, and then Marshall says,
Bauman and Bergdorf and the guys who are completely interchangeable to me, they're gone. Did you notice that?
I mean, I guess I don't know if we saw enough of the bar to know they're actually gone, but they're
Oh,
not
I
hanging
assume
out.
they just went to bed.
Oh, they may have.
Maybe not now, but
Yeah, I guess it's not really explained like why they're still out. I guess we hear more about later. But anyway, yeah. So Ted explains, and then Marshall says like he's like doing some reaction. He said, "I need to call you back." So no, you stick at the bar, and Marshall thinks about it a little bit, and then obliquely refers to Lily having spilled the beans to him about Robin, and then Barney just spits out the secret in public. Marshall then gets very upset about being last to know. So this left out thing that Marshall's had kind of an issue with for all seasons is again coming up. Barney smugly says he's a better friend with Robin than he is, and then Marshall comes back with him being better friends with Ted than Barney is. And then they start really loudly yelling at each other, and Lily's just like sipping her drink, watching between them. So I imagine this is going on for several minutes.
It's such an escalation, probably because they need to go the honestly, the whole episode, I was screaming at everybody just to go to bed, and I think they're yelling at each other because 'cause they're cranky. No one should be awake at this hour, this ungodly hour of 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, you would be.
Yeah.
You're more of a night owl than me.
Even then, I usually sleep by 2.
Okay. So even you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So while Ted's waiting, he's still in a taxi. He tries to call Victoria, who isn't picking up. And so it is about 8 a.m. in Germany at this time. Though it's possible the show thinks it's 8 p.m., and that's unclear. But either way, Victoria's not picking up. And then subconscious Victoria offers Ted a cupcake. Ted asks where she is, and she says she's out hooking up with 3 other guys as she's licking frosting off of a frosting spatula. Then Marshall calls back finally, and he makes up a ridiculous story about a chemical accident in front of Robin's place and that Ted should just go home. Ted doesn't buy it, and then Marshall gets serious, refers to his mom saying, and pleading with Ted to go home. Ted defends himself, saying Robin doesn't even like him that way. So, that's why he felt safe going over. He thinks Robin just thinks he's a friend. He's doing something he cares about Robin. Yes, that's why he's going over, but like he's there to support her as a friend. But then Lily grabs the phone to tell him that Robin does like him. Lily says that she's vulnerable right now and pleads for Ted to go home. Ted eventually says he will and hangs up. So at the bar, Lily feels satisfied, but Marshall and Barney know Ted too well. Marshall naturally thinks the prospect of juice is equally as enticing to Ted as the sex. Lily maintains faith in Ted, though, and says he has more sense than that. But back in the taxi, future Ted says, I did have more sense than that, but after 2 a.m., my good sense was sound asleep.
I can't contain myself. I need to start railing on Ted now.
All right, go
All
for it.
right. I'll try to keep it brief. So, Lily, when she discloses a secret, also a good reminder of I think we already know at this point Lily's not good at keeping secrets. Although
Mhm.
here I see her reasoning for sharing it.
Yep.
Obviously backfired because all Ted heard at this point was Robin likes him. He keeps repeating it back
Mhm.
to her. She Lily makes some excellent
Yep.
points and he's just she likes me. She likes me. That nothing else
Mhm.
is he's not taking any other information in by that point. Also, him even calling Marshall in the first place really rubbed me the wrong way because he isn't calling to ask for his honest opinion and to take that into consideration when making his next decision. He just wants to be validated.
True. Yeah.
All right, I'm okay. Continue.
So Ted pays the cabbie and goes up to Robin's apartment. Get a commercial break, and we come back. We're outside Robin's. Ted encounters subconscious Victoria on the stoop. She challenges him. Ted tells her to get out of the way, and she says, I'm not in your way. Ted starts to say, well, if you would just call me, I would. But he realizes he's talking to nothing. Ted goes upstairs. Robin invites Ted in, and they're trading awkward banter. One of the awkward things Ted says is, how's it hanging? So when I was growing up, it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that it's referring to a man's balls. And so it
What?
probably can be used, especially not with a woman.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Huh.
That's what's hanging when you ask, how is it hanging?
Oh,
Yeah, so don't
well,
use
good to
it.
know.
TIL. Today I learned.
I'm not a social media person, listeners. I'm assuming that's where Nick's learned this lingo.
Mhm.
But all right, wow. TIL, TIL. I learned what TIL means.
So Robin pours half a huge glass of wine for Ted. It does look like it was up to the wide part, so maybe that's actually where it's supposed to be poured. And explains her day wasn't that notable, but it kind of left her uncertain about her identity and future. And I can relate to that. Like occasionally that sort of happens with me.
I thought she was spiraling a little bit much here, but then I was thinking, well,
Yeah,
maybe this has been building a little bit and we just haven't seen what's got
probably
to this
so. Yeah. A lot of things come into the head,
point. Mhm.
maybe even subconsciously. Ted says he has that about once a week. She explains that the only person she wanted to see at the end of the day was Ted, and then they share a brief moment before Robin covers for it and asks about Victoria. Future Ted says, "When the clock strikes 2, just go to sleep." Here, Ted lies and said they broke up.
Ooh.
Ted, you idiot.
Also, I just gotta say, I know it's supposed to be cute the way that this narrative here with future Ted telling his kids, "Oh, the lesson here is don't just go to bed at 2 a.m. Nothing good happens at 2 a.m." But at a certain point in this episode, it really irked me because his choices have nothing to do with the time of day. It was like he
Mm,
wasn't holding him past self accountable.
I think what I got from this episode is that the choices he's making are so obviously wrong that like he didn't have to make that a lesson. Like the things you're doing so obviously wrong, and his judgment in avoiding those decisions was hampered by being overtired. But I know what you mean, but
Mhm.
I feel like that's just like he made himself vulnerable to making bad decisions.
Yeah. And I guess we can say more about this at the end, but
Mm,
at this point in the episode, like, my notes, I was like, "This is really pissing me off, the whole 2 a.m. thing."
fair enough. Yeah, so I guess maybe at the end we can talk about like, do we think Ted would have possibly done something similar to this if it wasn't after 2 a.m. or
Or just under
yeah.
there's a lot of circumstances that he
Mhm.
points to try to justify the choices that he made.
Yep.
So, yeah, I we can maybe play through some of those. What if she had called? What
Mhm.
if he had called her? What if yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Robin is shocked at this and says that she feels awful, but she's smiling. Ted points this out, and Robin plays it off as being a news anchor. You know, she's practicing awful stuff with a smile. But then points out Ted is also smiling. And we go to the bar. We have a Korean man dressed as Elvis on stage singing. Of course, the Korean man is actually a Chinese actor, but you know, in the show he's Korean. He's called Korean Elvis. Marshall says that Korean Elvis rocks infinity. Lily says it's time for bed, though, and but Barney says it's only 2:30. Lily repeats Ted's mom's phrase. Barney wants to prove this is wrong, though, that all the best things happen after 2 a.m. Barney's examples here are the Liberty Bell incident, a little scrape at the Russian embassy. So presumably he like was pretending to be a Russian spy to like try to get a woman and ended up in the embassy and like was in trouble or something. And that's what I assume.
Who knows?
And then the almost 4-way, which Marshall challenges, but he said I said almost. And he said that's when things get legendary. It's been a while since he's actually said legendary. Barney invites Korean Elvis to have a drink, and it begins. He wants to prove that things can be legendary, and so he'll just do crazy things, and we'll see what happens there. Back at Robin's, Ted says that he got a new phone. It's the same as Robin's, he says. And it's a Razor. I never had one myself, but they were so cool at the time. I really wanted one. Did you ever have a Razor?
No, I don't think so. I don't even remember them.
They were big at the time and thin. You flip them open, and there was like nice big light up buttons. Ted and Robin are kind of getting closer to each other, but they seem kind of like nervous to actually like touch. Ted uses the phone as a metaphor for wanting Robin, and then the phone rings, and he excuses himself to answer it. Presumably, he thinks it might actually be Victoria, but it's Korean Elvis. He goes in the hallway to answer it. The gang apparently is stuffed into a taxi. Ted apparently knows Korean Elvis because he like says, "Is that Korean Elvis?" So this must be like a local staple of the
Oh,
borough or something.
I took it as his voice was so specific, like, that it was a Korean guy doing an Elvis impression, and Ted somehow was able to pick up on that.
So yeah, Marshall invites Ted to McLaren's when he gets on the phone, and Ted explains, "So I'm at Robbins." Marshall rightly yells at Ted, self bleeping for the sake of Korean Elvis and the FCC. Ted says that I've made up my mind, I'm gonna end it with Victoria, and then Lily grabs the phone and says, "Gonna?" Lily explains that it will poison any possible future if he does this, and she's right. Ted knows she's right, and says that he hates that she's always right. Lily says it's her best and most annoying trait, and Marshall nods.
I think Lily absolutely nails it here. I think we've seen her throughout the season demonstrate that she's very adept at holding her friends accountable in a really loving way. And here, what I like what she did is she framed it as I want you and Robin to succeed in a potential relationship. And if you start it out on this note, it's not going to. So it showed that how invested she was in both of them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Ted says he's coming home, and Ted goes to sit on the couch next to Robin, but then he immediately says he should probably get going because how late it is. And a moment of credit to Ted here, like he is just about to make it work. He's just about to leave, but then he asks if he can call her tomorrow, so he's delaying. potential to like after he finds out, hopefully. And then says goodnight, and then they hug for too long, and then they kiss. If he just didn't hug her, maybe you wouldn't be overcome by hormones, and she would be overcome by hormones, and none of this happened. But they were weak. Both of them were weak, and we go to the commercial. When we come back from a commercial, we see Ted and Robin making on the couch, and both are commenting on how wild it is that they're actually doing it. Robin has to go to her room despite the five dogs, and Ted agrees. But then he grabs the phone and says he has to quick run to the bathroom. And then subconscious Victoria pops up again and says, "What's she doing?" And Ted explains he's going to call to break up with her. Victoria points out that it's not likely to be a short conversation. This is, "What do you want from me? People break up, it happens." Victoria says, "Not like this. Not from the bathroom of the girl you're about to sleep with." Ted comes back with, "It's not ideal." And Ted's being awful here, but that is a very funny comeback.
I also liked imaginary Victoria's suggestion that if you're in here for 20 minutes trying to break up with me, then Robin's gonna think you're about to take a massive and then kinda cuts her off.
Yeah. So we go to McLaren's, and the gang's at the bar, which is very empty at this point, with Korean Elvis kind of crooning at Lily from behind the other booth, and he's kind of spitting on her. And the marshal said, "Okay, it's time to end the night." And Barney says they're only at the le. They haven't got to the gen, the da, the re yet. Lily comes back that the Lee should be followed up with "go home." Marshall says Barney got burned phonics style and walks off. By the way, have you heard this thing where like kids say aren't like getting like phonics education? That's why they can't really read as well.
What do you mean?
So at some point, at least for some places, phonics, I guess, got replaced by like sight reading. Like you would learn words by sight rather than learning the sounds different words make to try to like put things together at your reading.
Okay.
So like the idea is like it made a lot of kids who went through this, like, they know about a lot of words, but like if they encounter a new word, they have a hard time like, trying to put things together in order to sound it out and like this to then kind of learn the word that way.
I don't even know how you teach someone how to read, without teaching them. So it's like they kind of gloss over the part where it's like, you break down the word and you sound it out, and
Yeah,
I don't
apparently.
how do you learn to read like that
Well, I
without
guess
doing that?
it's called sight words or something. I don't know why.
'Cause I assume, like, learning like, at a certain point, your brain, you just learn what words are familiar, and I assume that
Mhm.
kinda just happened naturally at a later point that you weren't taught that.
Yeah, I don't know. But apparently, there's at least like studies where, at least for kids who've gone through that, it's hard for them to learn new words because they can't break it down into parts, which they can. It makes it easier to put together in their heads and then figure out what it means. So,
Huh,
like often, kids if they come across a new word, they kind of like skip over it. Anyway, so it's
that's
fascinating.
fair enough.
Apparently, phonics is really important.
Alright, thank you for the warning.
We were all hooked on phonics as kids, and we are better for it. So Korean Elvis tries to come on to Lily as Marshall wanders off, and apparently whispers something really offensive in her ear, and she knees him in the groin. And Mickey, from a legal perspective, is that assault and battery?
Well, okay, so assault and battery, hold on, I have to watch this carefully. Okay, I'm gonna call this battery. Here's why. So assault is when you see the punch coming, which I don't think he actually had time to do that, and he was still kind of leaned over her shoulder. Battery is the physical act itself. Yes, this is battery.
And there are no technically no circumstances that would mean it's not a crime.
I mean, well, I'll preface this by saying criminal law is not my area, but now I think he would make himself look pretty bad if he filed a suit against her, and then the circumstances that brought about that kick into the groin came out. I don't think. Let's say it actually went, in front of to a jury trial. I doubt they can get a lot of sympathy, but I also kind of doubt equally that there's an official legal defense.
I vaguely remember some of the bar exam cards or examples that you had to go through back then.
Yeah. I mean, in certain crimes, if there's a certain type of provocation, that would be something to take into consideration, maybe in mitigating your punishment or something. But here, I'm not so sure.
Future Ted says this would come to be known as the time Lily kicked Korean Elvis in the nards. So they got their legendary moment. Back at Robin's in the bathroom, Ted admits to subconscious Victoria that he owes her a real breakup call. And she says, "Good," and asks if he'll go home. But Ted still doesn't want to. He thinks Robin could be the one he marries and that this incident would be insignificant over a lifetime. And so he's just finding any rationalization possible because he knows the answer he wants and he's just trying to make it okay. Ted says that he's exhausted from pretending not to be in love with Robin and says, I think that makes it okay. It doesn't make it okay. Victoria says, please, you will just want to get laid. And he says, yes, I do. And he blames Victoria for it not happening. But interesting, it's not because of not calling. He blames her because she's in Germany at all. And I think this goes to my theory that Ted more or less gave up on Victoria the moment she left, even subconsciously. And that's why he wasn't sending her any care packages. He wasn't on the right wavelength for calling. He wasn't trying to find ways to be romantic on the phone. He was just going with emotions.
I see what you're saying now, yeah, because his actions, even leading up to this point, suggest that he wasn't really invested in it anymore. I think here Ted has revealed that he's been holding a grudge against Victoria for leaving, which
Yeah, yeah.
isn't exactly fair. I can understand the feeling, but he was the one who supported her going.
And there are many things he and she could have done to work it out before this point, and or after this point, and before doing anything stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that could have happened between that and what he decides to do here.
Yeah. Well, Ted pretty much done with this subconscious conversation. He says goodbye, and then he goes to call Victoria, and Victoria says, "That's not your phone."
Oh.
Victoria's gone. Ted, you can see the dread on Ted's face. He exits the bathroom to find Robin on his phone saying goodbye to someone sadly.
Mm.
Robin explains that she thought it was hers, so she answered it. It was Victoria. Robin tosses the phone at Ted. He barely catches it, and Robin says that he should call her back, and she goes into her room. We then cut to the taxi. We see Ted listening and arguing on the phone, rubbing his eyes. Future Ted says, I called Victoria from the cab, and we broke up. And there you have it, kids. The stupidest thing I've ever done. In one night, I managed to hurt two people I cared about. And none of it would have happened if I just listened to my mom. And we see Robin and Ted on a split screen, both sad, getting into bed. And Future Ted wraps up saying, so I guess if there's a lesson to be learned here, it's this. When it's after 2 a.m., just go to sleep. Credits.
Wow.
So, yeah. Yeah, let's talk more about, Ted and the 2 a.m. thing here. So I think what the narrator is getting at here is not that these decisions were not themselves bad. I think that's taken for granted. I think what he's saying is the feelings underlying it there were valid and could have been dealt with in a more productive way if he hadn't allowed himself to be so tired and maybe even a little bit. I don't know if he had any drinks, maybe a little drunk as well. He could have dealt with those emotions in a better state if he had just gone to sleep and woken up the next day and dealt with it. So I think maybe you're right that maybe it's a little too much focus on the 2 a.m. as part of the issue, but I think as a framing device of the episode, I think it works okay. But yeah, why don't you go on?
It's hard for me to give Ted that much credit that the underlying action that we should take it for granted, that he wants his kids to take it for granted that,
Right.
yeah, it doesn't have to be said that this was a poor decision. I think part of it for me is he spends a lot of the episode trying to justify his actions to his friends, to himself, via imaginary Victoria. And at the end, where he says, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done, I'm kind of curious if I asked him to be more specific, which part was it? Was it the lie? Was it the timing? Was it even going back earlier than that in terms of how he handled getting into this long distance relationship in the future? I just didn't trust Ted enough in this moment to think that maybe and also, like, I know we're not gonna get into it now, but based on some of his attitude toward Robin in the next episode,
Mm.
I don't know what Ted learned here.
Well, I guess what did Ten learn the next day versus what did he learn 25 years from now?
Yeah,
So
fair.
I think Future Ted did learn, and I think the stupid thing was the cheating. Like whatever, like he could have either fixed things up with Victoria or broken up with Victoria, and then if broken up, then he could have maybe done something with Robin. And that was the mistake, is not dealing with that sequence of events. Whatever
Mhm.
happened, well. But yeah, I don't think Ted of 2006, I guess at this point, is processing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take him some time to actually figure out what was wrong with what happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I definitely have more to say about this. What are your reactions to all this at this point?
I mean, it is Ted's villain moment, I think,
Mhm.
at least so far. It's the worst he's ever been. The I guess rock bottom for his character. Like, he goes from this like grand romantic trying to be the best person possible, and then he extremely selfishly tosses all away to ruin the two people he's madly in love with this season.
Yeah, so when you used this word villain a minute ago, one thing that I walked away from this episode wondering was, so Ted is the hero of the show. How do we as an audience stick with him at this point? Like, does the official podcast address this?
Two things: I don't listen to the official podcast before we do these, and also they haven't gotten to this episode yet.
Okay. Well, I'll be curious what they say because I think that was the biggest question for me. I don't know how, because it's weird. So, if this was the era of television where we start to celebrate the anti-hero with Sopranos, Mad Men, we get Breaking Bad shortly after, but this isn't an anti-hero really. He doesn't really fall into that camp. He isn't off to anybody, you know. He's just a regular guy. He's the main character of a sitcom, but then he's done this really unforgivable thing. So it's like he's almost like in the middle of hero and anti-hero territory, and I don't really know what to do with that.
I think he's a regular guy. He's not a romantic hero. He is a person with huge flaws, and we're seeing some of those flaws. And I guess we hope that he climbs back out of them in
Mhm,
some way or another. And I think it's helpful that he's been kind of rebuked by all of his friends so far for what
mhm,
he was about to do and was doing. So even while he's doing something wrong, we have seen, Lily and Marshall are still people to root for. And even now, Robin, we feel bad for Robin now because of what Ted did. So yeah, I think the show maybe rests on our affection for them and wanting to see Ted bounce back because we know Ted does eventually reach a happy ending. So
mhm,
how does he get there? How does he grow from this point? And I think that's interesting to watch. Even it's not typical sitcom territory because it's not a
mhm.
funny thing to happen. But I think it isn't. How does he go from this low point to somewhere good?
Yeah, and maybe that does make Ted a more compelling, identifiable character because the audience, like, we've all screwed up, right? We've all done things potentially equally as bad or worse, so we don't have to relate to the show through this character who's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. Like, yeah, I don't know what percentage of the audience like has done
Mhm,
something like exactly like this, but yeah, I'm sure everyone's made some sort of terrible mistake in certain circumstances that they wish they could have taken back, or and then later on, that they maybe not the same person, but like they find happiness later on where they learn and they're a better person for that next relationship. So I guess it's maybe a little different because Robin will stay in the show for quite some time.
yeah, and now we're, nearing the end of the season, so it's gonna be so
Mm,
interesting how, Robin and Ted come back from this, if they
yeah,
do.
absolutely.
I had, a question too, I forget at what point Ted if he mentions this at all. Why didn't Ted just call Victoria at any point?
Oh, he did a couple times.
Did he?
So he tried calling the cab, and she wasn't picking up. Yeah, and then he was trying to call in the bathroom, but yeah, I guess he didn't actually get to do it.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought he, like, had mentioned it at one point, but then I forgot
Mm,
that he actually had tried. Because, yeah, there's just one point in the episode where he's talking to imaginary Victoria, and he's pretty much putting the blame on Victoria to justify his actions. Like, "Oh, if you had just called me, then I wouldn't have to be here trying to cheat on you."
yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever see Victoria again or if we'll get a little more information about what happened on her end. Saying this kind
Mm.
of semi facetiously because some of it I remember sometimes, some of it I genuinely don't. I genuinely don't remember why she didn't call or if we ever find that out. But I think you said we never do, right?
So in the later season, you see her again in some context. I won't spoil the context.
Mhm.
I forget exactly what we learn or not about the specific around like why she called her non, but we learn more about what was going on with her in this time period.
And I guess like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter unless she really was off cheating on him with three different guys, like he thought he was imagining.
Yeah, but his ignorance of that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
well, if it was happening, he was still ignorant of it, so like it wouldn't like make it better.
Sure. Yes. Yes. In retrospect, if that's like, if he found out after the fact that actually was what he wouldn't have to beat himself up as much, but you're right, it
Right.
still would not have justified it in the moment based on the information he had. Yeah. So actually, I only noticed this while we were talking about the episode. I thought it was really interesting. Maybe I don't know if this is the direction that they gave the actress who played Victoria. She comes across as so chipper when she's having these conversations with Ted. She's not yelling at him or judgy. She's very like matter of fact. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to play it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. And at one point, Victoria accuses Ted of just wanting to get laid, which I guess is really Ted accusing himself of wanting to just get laid. I don't think that's actually the case here. I don't think Ted would have done this with any old rando on the street. I do think that there was a lot of emotional groundwork with Robin. I think there are genuine
Sure.
feelings. There's a lot of passion. That doesn't make it okay. I'm just saying I don't think Ted was just trying to get laid, even if that's something he's even accusing himself of.
True, although I think it's like, why now? Like, why couldn't you wait a week and
Yeah.
find out? Because the opportunity is here now, and it might not be there in a week. Is probably what he was thinking to himself. So in that respect, it sort of feels like, yeah, he's just looking to get laid that night.
Yeah, he was impatient. He really he could have gone home. He could have had that phone call, dealt with it, then gone back to him. There are a lot of points where he could have course corrected, and I think it would have still been okay.
Yeah.
Mm. All right, so before one more thought before that's so awesome. I'm really proud of myself. I got a great background catch for you.
Oh yeah.
Did you notice what is in Robin's kitchen?
No,
A Chinese checkerboard.
really.
Just like in Ted's apartment, and I almost wondered if it was intentional because if it was I mean, maybe it was already there, but it seemed like Ted and Robin were on such different pages. I was thinking, well, maybe it was there to kind of hint that maybe they are sort of on the same page. Maybe I was just overthinking it, and the set designers really like Chinese checkerboards.
My guess, yeah, my guess is just they happen to have the same set design stuff, and like you were just throwing things everywhere to fill it out. But hey, maybe.
Maybe Robin was inspired by Ted's the decorations in their apartment. And she's like, oh man, I need me a Chinese checkerboard up on my wall.
I think they did say in the official podcast they weren't paying much attention to the set dressing stuff, but like everyone on set knows the characters and so would do things to.
Mhm.
So it's possible, but like it probably wasn't written that way.
All right. That's all I got.
Well, what did you rate this episode, Vicky?
This was a really hard one for me to rate because I it's not an episode I enjoy rewatching, obviously, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's not due to the episode being written poorly or acted poorly or anything like that.
Mhm.
So, I landed on a 3 out of 5 razors.
Oh, nice. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 juicings as friends. I was very close to giving it a 5,
Wow.
but it wasn't the funniest episode, and Ted absolutely sucked in it. I think that the B plot was fairly weak, and
Yeah.
maybe could have compensated with more humor to offset the Ted and Robin side. But I do think the story was told very well. We got to see Victoria one last time, which is fun. And the phone twist at the end was kind of perfect. So yeah, even though Ted sucked here, his motivations did feel very real and grounded for what's someone his situation and kind of vulnerable and weak and wanting to be selfish in a moment might do. So as much as it's awful, it feels kind of real. I think one of the show's strengths is when it does make some relationship moment in someone's like love life real. And this is kind of a real mistake someone might make. So I think they depicted it very.
Yeah. Well, I feel a little better about the episode having talked it through with you. Ready for Mary the Paralegal?
Let's do it.
All right. So this was I was kind of reeling still from watching that episode. This one's not as heavy. We probably needed a little reprieve here. Married the Paralegal air date is April 4th of 2006.
April 24th.
24th. Okay.
So again, people had to wait 3 weeks to find out what happened after this episode. Imagine you're watching reruns in between, and you just have to wait for it to be resolved.
Oh, yeah, that'd be rough. I'd say not as rough as having to wait for the last half of the season of Stranger Things, like years in between. I think we still have to deal with that in a lot of ways.
That's fair.
Oh,
Years is a long time.
yeah, and then they expect us to like. that's a pet peeve of mine is Netflix season recaps because I'll come back and I'm like, none of this is helpful information. I don't remember who any of these people are. The last season was 2 years ago. I've had a whole lifetime since then. All right. Mary the Paralegal air date is April 24th, 2006. So, guest stars, once again, we do get Alexis Denisoff, Sandy Rivers. Mary is played by Erin Barlett. I didn't recognize her in very much at all. Apparently, she was in Shallow Hal. I don't know if you've seen that.
Okay. No, I haven't.
It's okay. I also looked up Vampire Lou. He's played by Robert Michael Morse. He's been credited with literally nothing else on IMDb. So I'm wondering if he was like a cameraman or something they just put in there for fun. Here's my episode description. After Ted lies to Robin about his relationship status with Victoria in order to get together, Ted and Robin bring dates to Robin's award show to make each other jealous. Barney takes advantage of the situation by setting Ted up with a hot date, but leads him to believe she's a sex worker. Lily needs an app. All right, so the episode starts off at McLaren's where Ted is sitting with Barney, Lily, and Marshall. And the caption says 3 months earlier. And Ted is gushing to the gang about Victoria. And Robin comes in and announces that she got nominated for a local area media award for a segment she did called Pickles the Singing Dog. Lily says, wait, Lama? Apparently, that's not how they prefer to refer to it. But Robin invites the gang to a banquet, and they're kind of unenthused until she says it's an open bar, and then everybody's on board. Ted tells Robin to put him down for two, and Robin was like, well, that's in 3 months. Are you sure? And Ted says, oh, yeah, I have a feeling Victoria's going to be around a long time. Cut to 3 months later. The guys are sitting at the bar. It's kind of low energy, and Marshall sighs and says, I'm going to miss Victoria. Marshall, I feel you.
Yes, I agree, Marshall. Yeah, before we move on, I just want to note so the very beginning of the scene in the 3 months earlier,
Hmm.
so right in the middle, there's a background actor who gets up and just like she has a very thin, skinny strap tank top with this like shoulder, like this like sleeve thing that's like just sleeve, like a sweater that's just sleeves.
I see it. Yeah.
That so weird.
That was a
Was that
thing.
a
I
thing?
remember that.
Oh,
I
I did.
definitely remember that.
I saw that in Bunheads a couple times. There's one of the dancer girls who has those.
I popular among ballerinas, but I know
What was the
exactly.
name of that?
I don't know.
Sweater sleeves?
It's not really, I could see it maybe being functional for a dancer or an athlete where they need to keep their arms warm, but their body, I don't know. I'm sure there's
I don't understand the garment at all. Like to me, it just looks weird. Anyway.
good fashion catch.
So also before we move on, so Ted was expounding about how much Victoria and he had in common, right? And he mentioned this Otis Redding box set.
Yeah.
So Otis Redding apparently was the king of soul in the 50s and 60s, and he died in a plane crash.
Was he the one that they wrote American Pie about? Because that was about someone, a singer who died in a plane crash. Was that Otis Redding?
Question.
Because how many singers could have died in plane crashes?
No. These are rock and roll musicians. I
Oh,
mean, plane crashes were a lot more common back in the day.
Jesus.
Of course, like Harrison Ford has crashed like 3 times and he's alive.
What?
Yeah, he flies his own private plane. He's had a bunch of crashes.
Oh, is he a really bad pilot?
I guess so.
Is he why we're having so many aviation safety issues this year?
No, no, that would be Trump. Yeah, anyway, so we had this plot point a few episodes ago where like Ted barely knows Victoria, doesn't even know if she like likes dogs or cats, but
Mhm.
he knows which CD in the this Otis Redding box set is her favorite.
I could see
So
it. Sometimes
maybe
when you're getting to know somebody, it's a little random. You get some
that's true. That's true.
blind spots in your knowledge of them, but you learn about other stuff. Yeah, I had never heard of Otis Redding, so I just I zipped right past that.
All right.
All right. So it's 3 months later at McLaren's. Ted is sitting at the bar with Marshall and Barney. I'll say, by the way, I've stopped tracking what everybody's drinking. Unless I see something of note, probably not going to mention it anymore. I thought there'd be a little more variety. Ted's talking about skipping the banquet because Robin's still pissed after and Barney gives us all a little recap of Ted's crimes, which obviously we just discussed in great detail. So I won't go through them again. But Ted was like, "Yeah, that's what I meant by, just doesn't enjoy getting reminded about it, I guess." Ted's complaining that Robin won't return any of his calls. It's been 3 weeks. Marshall
Only been 3 weeks. Like, why would you expect her to return your calls this soon?
Oh,
You
and
straight up
actually, I guess that tracks with how long it's been between the release date of these 2 episodes, huh?
Oh, yeah, yeah, they made that work.
They were consistent. Yeah, I cannot blame her. But Marshall encourages Ted to go to the banquet. He says it's a chance to show her that you're still friends and that you support her. I'm realizing a lot of times with the advice Marshall gives to people and to Ted in particular, I don't always agree. I see where he's
Mm,
coming from, but I don't think Robin would want him there. Or if she hasn't returned his calls, I would take that as I should not go until we've resolved this.
yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Or, you say, "I wanna support you, but I also won't go if you don't want me to," or something like that, where you willing to, but you're not, like, staying away because of enmity on your end, you're just saying, "I'm gonna respect you."
Barney says it is a chance to mess with her head by showing up with someone hotter. Thank you, Barney. Practically speaking, Ted points out that this thing is in 2 hours. So Barney, just without missing a beat, says, "We'll just get an escort." And Ted is so put off by this. Barney argues that prostitution is the world's oldest profession. I actually don't know if that's true. I've heard that, certainly.
I mean, I think it's just a joke.
I well, I don't know, it could be, but Marshall does challenge him by Barney says something like, "Oh yeah, I bet even cave people, they a cave woman would put out for a little bit of extra fish." And then Marshall says something like, "Oh, well, so then you're saying fisherman's the oldest profession." Ted says that it is illegal and it is gross and he doesn't want to do it. Barney says, "You do realize that 1 out of every 8 adult women in America is a prostitute." Marshall says, "You just made that up." Barney withdraws his statement and Marshall says, "Lawyered." This is a runner throughout the episode, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, so we're getting our origin story for Lawyered here, like we got the origin story for Legendary a bunch of episodes ago for Barney.
I thought we'd heard lawyered at least
Oh,
once.
it was not quite Lawyered. It was here we're getting, like, the fully baked Lawyered.
Marshall isn't he definitely has this I'm in the middle of law school energy where he's which I get. I was like that too. Ted admits that it's been 57 days since he's had sex. So I just stop and think about this and I think he's close because so last time would have been when he had that marathon sex session with Victoria the day she left or the day before she left. And then she was in Germany for a month, right?
Do we know the exact
I remembered that
I think it was 3 weeks, 'cause I think maybe they're trying to do the 3 weeks between 'cause I think it was 3 weeks, another 3 weeks.
And he might have just been estimating. I feel like he
Mm,
said maybe a couple episodes ago, "Oh, it's been a month since, we've been doing long distance." Alright, let's say, like, okay, 3 to 4 weeks. And then it's been 3 weeks since the breakup, as we've just heard. So, I was calculating this as maybe closer to 50 days, but I'll take it. It's not too
mm.
far
And haha, there he's worried about 57 days without sex? Wimp.
off. Yeah, that's not that bad. Apparently to Barney it is because he asks to borrow Ted's water and then he does a spit take and it looked like the actor wasn't actually expecting it because yeah, Ted you see it's a little bit of spittle in his it was pretty funny. And Barney accuses Ted of being in a slump. Ted defends himself that it's not a slump, it's an intentional hiatus from girls. He's not even on the field right now. He's in the locker room. Barney says that, you know what else is in the locker room? A bunch of naked dudes. And he needs a lady, and he's got the next best thing. Mary. She lives in my building, and he starts talking her up. And Ted's sarcastically like, "Oh yeah, and then maybe we'll end up getting married if we can, get a blessing from her pimp." And Barney says, "You want to judge a fellow human being based solely on one external characteristic. That's racism. And I do not drink with racists. Good day." And he's like standing there just looking at them expectantly. And then Ted's laughing and saying, "You just want me to say something." And Barney just interrupts him. "I said good day." And he storms out of the bar.
That's a reference to something, right?
Is it? It felt like it.
That is from Tootsie, apparently.
I've heard of Tootsie. I have not seen it.
Neither have I.
I know it was referenced at least a couple times in 30 Rock.
Oh, I think, looks like Wonka also did it.
I don't remember that from Willy Wonka. So at Marshall and Lily and Ted's apartment, Robin and Lily are, well, really, it's just Robin getting ready. Lily is napping on the couch.
Why is Robin getting ready in Ted's apartment if she doesn't want to see Ted?
I wondered that too, because couldn't Lily have just as easily gone over to her apartment to get ready?
And it also doesn't seem like they arranged for her to be there when Ted was gone or something, which of course is just downstairs from his apartment in
Yeah.
McLaren's.
I guess because they all end up meeting up at McLaren's and then all go to the banquet together. So maybe it was a logistical thing, but then she didn't know Ted was going to go, and Ted, he wasn't
Yeah,
even sure he was. I don't know why. Yeah, that was weird.
made no sense.
Um, Robin looks smoking though. I like her dress.
Yeah, back in red, good color on her.
Yeah, she looks stunning in red. Lily looks pretty too, but
Mhm.
I just the red's more vavavoom.
Also, the same color of the dress that she wore when she was going to meet up with Ted at the wedding.
Yeah, I was thinking that one too. So Robin asks if Lily's okay, and she says, yeah, she's just exhausted because the school board took away nap time in all kindergarten classes. So that means that Lily, they took away her nap. Robin said, well, wait a second, you were taking naps when the kids were? Is that safe? And Lily's, oh, they're only 5. What are they going to do to me? Which is funny. So Robin confirms, hey, is Ted coming to this thing still? And then she asks if it would be weird if she brought a date. And Lily accuses Robin of trying to make Ted jealous, which he denies. So cut to McLaren's. Lily calls Marshall to warn him that Robin is bringing a date. Marshall immediately tells Ted he's insisting that this isn't going to be weird. They're still friends. And then Barney brings in Mary, and we get one of those "Have you met Teds?" So she's very talk about a good dress. I was just drooling over her dress the whole time. It's so curvy and delicious. I love it. So he's like, "Hello, yes," and then Ted pulls Barney aside to the bar, and Barney says that he wants to change Ted's mind about prostitution. He says A, it will make Robin insanely jealous. B, you get to have sex with her. And C, maybe by getting to know Mary, you'll come to see that courtesans are people too. And D, B, all night long. Some of these are valid points.
Yeah,
It does seem
like
like
Barney's kind of being a progressive about this, but also,
he
yeah,
does walk that line, doesn't he, between progressive and sexist.
yeah,
It's dizzying. Ted again refuses, but Barney's like, "Look, only you and Marshall and me, we're the only ones who are gonna know." Oh, and then he kinda just like, "Haha, actually it would be suspicious, if people saw you here with a hot girl." And then Barney drops that he spent $500 on Mary, and then he makes a pretty gross joke. He says, "You think I'm gonna stick you with some toothless tranny from the Port Authority?"
This aged poorly.
Yeah, I don't know how much we need to talk about this other than it was in very poor.
yeah. No, I completely missed that when it was in the episode.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's just not good.
They just slip 'em in a lot in this era, don't they?
Yeah,
But luckily, following that, we do get our first telepathic conversation of the series. Guys, listeners, we're going to see this a lot. We're going to hear this a lot, actually. So, Ted and Marshall have a telepathic conversation because just then, Robin and Sandy Rivers walk in together. So, flashback to the apartment, we learn that it was a guilty pleasure of Ted's and Marshall's to watch Sandy Rivers reading from the newspaper. And they would take, I don't know if it's like what it was made of, like little Velcro or something, but they would take little hats and things and paste it like onto his image on the TV. So you got like French Sandy, porn star Sandy. In the flashback we see, they dress him up as Yosemite Sandy. So he's got like a big old mustache. And Marshall and Ted are just like
and the
sitting
hat.
on the couch giggling. Yeah, he got a big old hat. And the guys are like, oh, I love this guy. And swipe to McLaren's at the present. I hate this guy. Ted introduces Mary. Marshall's being super awkward about it because he's not a very good liar, is he? He's like, oh, look up here. And Sandy Rivers meets the gang. So here we go, setting ourselves up for a pretty awkward night. At the banquet, it's the 45th annual local area media awards, the LAMAs. And the host for the evening is introduced, the king of the Saturday afternoon kung fu movie, Vampire Lou. So random on this, yeah, guy parades onto the stage in a tuxedo, but also dressed like a vampire. And then he says, "Tonight we celebrate the very best in broadcasting and the triumph of the human spirit," which is one of those, I guess, cheesy things you would say at an awards banquet. But the gang's at the table, and well, part of the gang's at the table. It's just the guys. They're discussing, Mary being a hooker. The word gets thrown around a lot this episode. And Lily returns from the restroom with Mary and kisses Marshall and then kind of mentions that she borrowed her lipstick. Lily is very cranky and starts complaining about how it makes zero sense that Vampire Lou is hosting a kung fu movie. Sandy Rivers, possibly like the first semi-charming thing he said since we met him last episode, says, "Oh, really? I couldn't imagine you cranky." And then Lily kind of sarcastically repeats it back to him. That's actually when I started wondering if they were already married in real life at this point, the actors, because I kind of wondered if it was a little nod to the fact that they had a relationship off screen.
Maybe.
Mary wants to know why Lily is so tired, and Lily explains that they took away her nap time. I mean, the kids' nap time. But Barney encourages Lily, "Why don't you just go work at a private school, be more money, and you don't have to deal with the school board?" And Lily, because she's very cranky, goes on a rant and, how is she this cranky with missing nap time? Like, stop staying out till like 2:30 in the morning, Lily.
Well, there's that too.
Anyway, so Lily goes on a cranky rant about how she doesn't base all her life decisions on how much money she's going to make, unlike you, Barney, and sadly my fiance. So here we actually now we get confirmation that Marshall is he's at least still completing this internship. I think it was a little ambiguous at the end of that episode, a couple episodes ago, Life Among the Gorillas.
They said that at the end of the internship, they were going to hire him.
Yeah, but then he does that "Don't Go Breaking My Heart" with Lily, and it seemed to resolve the conflict, so I thought, "Okay, well, he's either
Oh,
going to quit the internship or the implication is he's at least not going to go take the corporate job." So, yeah, what I got from this scene was he's gonna finish the internship, but he's not necessarily going to go work for them after he graduates.
my impression was just he wasn't going to act like them anymore, but he still like
Mhm.
hope to continue on to get the job.
Mhm.
And like, I think that's what he's still doing right here because he says, "Well, I will." Like Lily seems to be expecting him to be getting the job afterwards.
Yeah, he definitely said something like, "I'm just trying to make a little money." Okay, so he's at least just doing the internship. I guess we don't definitively know what's gonna happen after it.
Okay.
Right. And then Lily says, "If I did sacrifice all my values just for an easy buck, what would that make me?" And Mary says, "A prostitute." Knowing what we learn about Mary later on in the episode, I think the delivery of a lot of her lines are really good,
Hmm.
like because they can be read either way. But we'll come to that. So then, after she says this, they look deeply uncomfortable. So then Robin wants to know what Mary does for a living. Barney, in a really panicked voice, blurts out, "She's a paralegal." Marshall and Ted are pretty impressed because at this point they think, she is a prostitute. Spoiler alert, guys, she's not. I think we can start talking about this now, actually. But yeah, Mary starts answering all these questions satisfactorily that, what a paralegal does and where she works. And so Ted starts flirting with Mary.
It is funny because she sort of pauses a little bit as if
She
she's
does.
thinking of it. Yeah. So this is
Yeah,
very funny that she
I
does
guess,
that.
like, maybe, like, she had her mouth full of water or something, or, like, there's maybe other ways you could read it as to why she paused when she actually did work for this firm. Of course, at that moment, we're meant to read it as she's trying to think up a bogus law firm or,
Mhm.
in this case, a real law firm. So, anyway, Ted, he's starting to feel emboldened to flirt with her because, again, he thinks she's a sex worker. He's got a little more confidence, I guess. Robin clocks this, and she says, "Mary, Ted is a great guy. You hold on to him. Don't let him out of your sight for a minute." So then Ted retaliates and starts hassling Sandy Rivers about reading the paper and television. And Ted says that he reads the paper too, but then he goes to work and he makes a contribution to the world after this. At this point, I'll say that the difference, the pettiness and the jealousy, it's going to start escalating. But at this point, I'll just point out that Robin is roasting Ted. Ted is roasting Robin's date.
Huh.
So he's getting a little personal at this point. Robin's not going to be off the hook for long, folks. Petty Robin is going to return. We've seen her before. But God, as we say down here, bless his heart. Sandy Rivers is so confident. He takes everything as a compliment. I aspire to that. Uh, well, anyway, so Mary picks up on this and she starts roasting Sandy Rivers too, like whispering to Ted about, "Hey, see his hair. Do you think if he puts his hair on in the morning, the way Darth Vader puts his helmet on?" And Ted says, "You just insulted someone I hate by referencing something I love. Damn, you just got even hotter." And again, Robin's just clocking all of this. So now at the bar, Ted and Robin are getting a drink. Robin asks Ted if he's kissed Mary yet or if he's waiting until he's in a serious relationship with somebody else. Ooh, burn. Point Robin. And then Ted says, "I've been meaning to apologize for everything that happened." So at first, my instinct was, "What are you talking about? You haven't said you're sorry yet." But then I remembered, okay, well, he says Robin hasn't answered the phone. So that might
Yeah.
not all be on Ted. But I'll say that, Ted, he is the king of grand romantic gestures. Could he not also be the king of grand apologies? I could just see him, if he really wanted to, showing up at Robin's door with a bouquet of flowers and, an "I'm sorry" card. I feel like he just didn't want to do consequence.
But also, I feel like that's like risking life and limb.
And she doesn't own a gun.
Yeah.
Do we know that
So
yet?
I don't think we know that yet.
Guys, Robin's
No, we don't
gonna
know that
be
yet.
revealed to be a gun owner.
Yeah, I think he's right to try to approach from a distance, but maybe
Yeah.
he could have done like a card or something through Philly.
Yeah, I think he could have made more of an effort just because it's Ted. And if he really feels strongly about something, he will disregard other people's feelings to pursue that goal. The whole incident with Claudia and the wedding certainly showed us that. So I think if he really wanted to, he could have made more of an effort to apologize. So then Robin, unsurprisingly, does not accept Ted's apology. But here's where Robin's going to start getting some flack for me. I don't know why she's acting like, "Oh, yeah, we're still friends, though." No, you're not friends right now. It's passive aggressive for her to say that they were still friends.
Especially what happens later.
Yes. So they start accusing each other of trying to make the other jealous. Now Robin really starts to amp up the pettiness. She talks about Mary as paralegally blonde. Yeah, I hate jealous Robin. We've seen this before. I don't like
Mhm.
it here.
Yeah.
Ted leaps on this implication that Mary is a whore, gets really self righteous about the fact that, oh,
Well, I mean, Robin suggested, but she didn't think literally a whore, and
no.
she was blindsided by Ted like making that next leap. It's like, wait, that's not what I said.
Yeah, I guess that should have tipped her off. But, well, I mean, who would guess that Ted had hired a sex worker or thought that he'd hired a sex worker? But yeah, she's definitely thrown. Uh, Oh God. And Ted gets so self-righteous here. "Oh, I'm here as your friend. I'm trying to support you." And it's like he's mad that she hasn't immediately forgiven him. It's so
Yeah,
shitty.
yeah. And like, why is Ted trying to make Robin jealous? He's the one who screwed up here.
Yes, exactly.
Take your lumps, Ted. Take your lumps.
Yes. After Ted leaves though, Sandy Rivers comes up and says, "I like that guy." God bless him. We needed him, I think, these
Hmm.
past couple episodes. So Ted returns to the table, flirting with Mary more, and she kind of mentions, well, so first they're talking about how nice the hotel is, and he mentions that his architecture firm did a redesign there, and Mary says something to the effect of, "Oh, I guess it's too bad we don't have a room here." And then Barney immediately hands them a key. Apparently, he's already gotten them a room. Goes to commercial break, and we come back to the banquet, and Ted is talking to Barney, and he's really hesitant here. Barney says this is one of those things you have to do before you turn 30. And Ted asks, "What, sleep with a prostitute?" And Barney says, "No, lose your virginity." Jeez, Barney. And then Barney comes up with another nonsense statistic about men having had a relationship with a prostitute are 75% more likely to have success in future relationships, which again, Marshall, you just made that up, withdrawn, lawyers. So we got more of that. And then Marshall, us, like, "Look, Robin's category is coming up. Also, you can't do this." And then Marshall mentions that he's been placing small items in Sandy's hair all night and he hasn't noticed. So we're going to see that in a minute. I enjoyed that. Ted's like, "Oh, yeah, I know. I can't sleep with Mary, but it's such a shame because I really like her." I can't I mean, I guess this is a whole conversation, right? But Ted seems to be acting a little unnecessarily prudish about this.
Hmm. I think I don't know. I guess if you have all these associations with prostitution and like it is illegal, I can see why it might seem like especially taboo.
Mm.
Especially all his friends know, or well, half his friends know. It's not something that like Marshall's done. I guess we assume Barney's done it.
I can see why it would make somebody feel potentially uncomfortable. I just wonder if Ted's making a bit much of it, which is Ted's personality. He does tend to make a bigger deal of things than they necessarily are. The whole episode, I was kind of wondering, like, is this coming at the expense of sex workers? Is it we're expecting the whole audience to be on the same page as Ted?
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
yeah. And I don't know if it's less taboo now. I'd say it's less taboo for me.
Yeah, definitely certain contexts. Like, I think, well, uneven through society, I think.
Hmm. Anyway, the categories are being called a bicycle joyride or death trap, 13 pregnant and addicted, and then Robin's Pickles the singing dog, and Robin wins.
Ooh, yay, Robin.
So Robin uses her acceptance speech as an opportunity to diss Ted seriously by calling out every single one of her friends and thanking them for like being able to share this night with them. And then
Anton?
and Sandy Rivers, who stands up and waves, bless his heart. But then she very visibly leaves Ted out of that list of at the end, she says, like, "And that's it, those are all my friends," and she doesn't mention Ted, and
Oh,
off she goes, and then right in front of Ted, she very obviously asks Sandy Rivers if he wants to get a cab. Damn, Robin. That was cold-blooded. I mean, I get she's mad, but she's also what was it? Was it Michelle Obama who was like, "Oh, when they go low, go high?" Was she the one who was famous for
yeah, yeah,
saying
she did.
yeah, Robin's going low. Ted retaliates and says that he and Mary just got a room.
Which
I
is
wanna
not great to marry. Like,
you know what, though? I'm gonna give her some credit because Mary ca it's obvious that Mary can clearly see what's going on between Ted and Robin, but
mm,
she seems to be showing support for Ted.
yeah, sure.
She's been very cool about this. Then Marshall and Ted have another telepathic conversation. The face acting was great here. And basically, Marshall's discouraging Ted from doing this, going upstairs and having sex with Mary. But Ted's like, look, I like Mary and I want to make Robin jealous also. And then Lily interrupts their telepathic conversation telepathically, which is funny. So the couples depart. And then this is probably my favorite joke of the episode. Sandy Rivers, he turns to leave, and we see I saw drink umbrellas and a cocktail straw in his hair. I don't know if you saw anything else on your big fancy HDTV.
No.
um, I'll say kids did this to me in middle school, but
Really?
yes, they did. But I still found this funny.
Chance Forever seemed like he deserved it.
Yeah, I didn't. He did. And maybe that was the difference here. But yeah, listeners, I have very curly hair. And in middle school, it was huge. So I would go home and wash like paper clips and stuff out of my hair in the shower. Oh, it's funny because it's sad. But Lily and Marshall high five. And in the elevator, Mary and Ted are standing awkwardly in silence. And then just out of nowhere, Ted's like, so did you and Barney ever? And Mary says, there's not enough money in the world. So back at the table, Robin returns and says that she sent Sandy Rivers home in a cab and admits that she was just trying to make Ted jealous. Marshall says that Ted's off trying to make her jealous. And Robin says, okay, well, Mary must be cool if Ted likes her, but obviously she looks hurt. Then we get a telepathic conversation between Marshall and Lily. Now, Lily is asleep on Marshall's shoulder at this point, but Marshall has to tell somebody and he tells Lily everything. So he telepathically tells Lily that Mary's a prostitute. And then Lily jolts up and blurts out, Mary's a prostitute. And then Marshall points to Barney accusingly, like a child accusing a friend of breaking his mom's vase or something. And said, Barney paid for her. Marshall recaps what's happened. And Robin wonders if Ted is having a nervous breakdown at this point. And then Lily says, Barney, for anyone else, this would be a new low, but sadly for you, it's just a new middle. And then Lily realizes that she used Mary's lipstick, and then she starts wiping it off frantically with what Marshall points out was actually Mary's napkin. I know I was a little critical a minute ago about how this episode portrays prostitution as gross, but that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then Barney decides it's a perfect time to announce tonight's big twist ending, and he grabs Vampire Lou and hands him one of those little, I don't what are those cards called during award shows where they have the list of the winners and
A card?
yeah, he hands him a card and Vampire Lou in great delivery says Mary is not really a prostitute. And then according to Barney, the best part is that she doesn't realize that Ted thinks she's a hooker. I want to note that Mary being able to afford living in Barney's building would make more sense if she were a prostitute. No paralegal is gonna be able to afford an apartment in Barney's building because
Fair
'cause we've
point.
seen it. Yeah, they don't make anything.
Yeah. I mean, well, so there's a little window, like, there's affordable housing apartments that, like, are scaled by income that some
Mhm.
places have, but also, like, the lower floor apartments tend to be lesser rent than the higher floor.
Uh-huh.
So there's a thin chance where it could just maybe work out. Or she has rich parents or something.
It has to be that. There's no way. Well, Barney's laughing hysterically and then says that if they don't laugh, it just seems mean.
And he
So
keeps doing this, like, funny laugh the whole time.
he's like maniacal.
Yeah.
And now, the audience, we've got this information, and we're watching the scene with Ted and Mary walking down the hotel hallway. They're walking so slowly and just like pausing to deliver their
Um,
lines. It was like a weird blocking issue. I don't know what was going on here. Maybe it was like a really short hallway, but there was too long a script. But, the writing's pretty funny here because now that knowing what we know, there's some pretty great misunderstandings. Ted makes a comment about feeling like Richard Gere, and then Mary's like, "Oh, hi, you're not shy about your looks, are you?" And then Ted says that he's nervous. He's never been on a date before. And Mary says she's been dating since she was 15. Ted's, "Oh, God, you were just a kid." So they decide to just relax and have a few drinks. And then Mary says that she's had clients riding her all day, and then one of them wouldn't leave her alone, talk about anal. Apparently, this is just too much for Ted because, well, then we get this actually kind of interesting camera angle. Like they're standing in the doorway, like right behind Mary's shoulder.
mm,
So we're right up close. And then Ted says, "Hey, look, I really like you, but I cannot do this because you're a hooker." Mary says that she's a paralegal. And Ted keeps insisting and doubling down. "No, you're a hooker." And just like multiple times.
yeah, it's very funny, but also Ted isn't listening to what she's saying or trusting like, insisting that someone's wrong. Like, it's not good luck.
Like she would know. And there's no reason for her to lie about it at this point.
Yeah.
So finally, like, Ted gets this look on his face and he's okay, he gets it now. And Mary understandably looks pissed.
Mhm.
All right. And then we're at the last scene with McLaren's. Barney and Ted and Marshall are sitting at their usual booth, and Barney is laughing hysterically. And Ted and Marshall say it's not funny. Barney says he did it to prove a point, but then he has to sit there and think of one for a minute. I think the point was to punish Ted for being a dick to woman, but
That's
this,
by the point.
this prank hurt Mary too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was done through being a dick to women, so
Yeah. So Barney, I would have been on board if he hadn't dragged poor Mary into this. But then Barney decides he has a point. Ted thought Mary was a sure thing. So what happened? You took her up to a hotel room on the first date. So you just have to be that confident with every girl you meet, and then your slump is over. So Ted says, okay, so then the message is I should treat every woman like a whore? Again, Barney, it's as is often the case, there's a little grain of truth to what he's saying that's couched into a ton of sexism and generally just incorrectness.
yeah.
I agree. It's good to have that level of confidence. Can't hurt. But yeah, beyond that. Anyway, so Ted says, like, Mary slapped me and stormed off, and Marshall starts laughing again. But then Ted says, "Well, it's getting late. I should go back to my room. That really expensive hotel room that you put on your credit card. And by the way, I never checked out." He says that he's been pouring expensive Dom Perignon, I think it's a champagne, down the
Yeah.
bathtub. And then he has a massage. So he's got to go now.
So I don't think hotels work like that. Like, if you don't check out, they'll just check out for you. Like,
Point.
you have to stay and get billed. They'll to kick you out.
And maybe he asked to extend the night, like to extend his stay, and they had availability.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Either way, Barney looks shocked and Marshall starts laughing. And then Marshall says, "Come on, if you don't laugh, it just seems mean," which was a good way to end the episode.
I like
Yeah, that's all I got. Unlike the last episode, I actually didn't have a ton to discuss.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I figured this would be a quicker one. I do have a few that's so aughts.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, first of all, reading a newspaper.
Sure, yep.
Mhm.
CD box sets.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I'm adding sweater sleeves or sleeve sweaters or whatever you would want to call
Yeah, listeners, if you know what that look was, let us know because we don't. Well, my other one, this isn't completely out of fashion yet, but I think it's on its way. Having a physical key card for your room, for your hotel room.
it. Yeah.
So I typically stay at Hilton's and I always open it with my phone.
Yeah, I think I only started doing that in the hotel last year, so that's very new.
Yeah.
But actually, even then, I still had an actual key card.
Well, I never do. One time my app didn't work very well and I went and got a
Mm.
key card, but I
Yeah,
think
see, like if the phone's dead or like I don't know, I wouldn't feel comfortable just trusting only my phone.
well, I have a feeling it's on its way out, but yeah, maybe it's a little premature to make that a that's so odds. Well, yeah. What was your rating?
My rating is 3 out of 5 items in Sandy River's hair. Yeah,
Yeah.
just all around solid episode. Nothing particularly stood out for me.
Yeah, I think I agree. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 lamas. Yeah, and I think for similar reasons, it was I think in a way, like I said at the beginning, I needed this episode because the last few were in fact, particularly the last one were so intense. I just needed something not as intense. But yeah, it just wasn't notable. I didn't remember this episode very well.
All right. So the next 2 episodes we'll be covering are season 1, episode 20, Best Prom Ever, and season 1, episode 21, Milk. And we're back to weekly releases at this point, leading into the finale for the season. So no one had to wait 3 weeks for the episodes anymore.
I remember the prom episode. I don't remember the milk episode based on the title.
I'm reading the description. I still don't. I vaguely remember parts of it, but not the whole thing.
Well,
Yeah, I don't even know why it was called Milk.
I don't have a strong like the movie. Hopefully, it's not like the movie. Things are going to get a little dark. Thanks for listening to Puzzles, a How I Met Your Mother Re-Rewatch.
Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app and follow us at Puzzles Re-Rewatch on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also send us your thoughts, questions, and feedback to puzzlesrerewatch@gmail.com.
Leave us a review, or if you're not into the socials like yours truly, tell a friend about our show.
See you next time.